And then it was on to all of the big matches to go with the final four. Starting off with the Hollywood ending, the Falls Count Anywhere match between Timeless Toni Storm and Mariah May for the AEW Women's Championship. And out to call this match is Queen of the Ring executive producer Jim Ross. And Mariah May walks out and she's got these white roses and a white veil. And she comes out. Toni Storm makes her entrance with Luther and May just jumps her. And boom, the bell rings and we had nonstop action. They were going to utilize every second of this match for maximum impact. And that's what we got, including Mariah May deciding, should I open this match up with a collar and elbow tie-up or a taser? And she pulls out the taser, but Luther takes the taser away and May kicks him low and drop kicks him, sending him over this desk and plunging to his death for all we know.
Yeah, Luther was taken out by this, but man, I was focused more so on May.
She slipped as she was going for the drop kick, and this might have been Luther pretty much sending himself into Armageddon.
Like May ended up hitting the drop kick fine, but like even on landing that front drop kick on that hard surface on the ramp, man, that didn't look like it felt very good. And then they still had the rest of the sprint to go through.
This was just wild. Storm takes her off the stage with a sky high, putting them through a table before making their way ringside. Storm misses a hip attack into the guardrail, and May hits the Storm Zero onto the steps. And up comes Timeless Toni Storm auditioning for her next role in Carrie, as she is covered in blood. I cannot recall a blade job at this level in quite some time. This was like peak Vince McMahon when he would just like hit like a vein or something.
Certainly for a women's match, like I mean, I think back to Britt Baker, which, you know, prior to this might have been the most famous women's blade job certainly in AEW history.
May brings out these weapons from underneath the ring, and both have buckets with broken champagne bottles in them. And they do the spot from like the Taipei death matches where they tape their fists up and place broken glass on them and start just running at each other with strikes. Storm stabs May in the forehead with part of the champagne bottle, so May is now bleeding. And May uses a broken champagne bottle in between the legs of Toni Storm and then a stratisfaction onto the broken glass, followed by a Mayday for a 2 count. And I have it listed. This overhead shot of Toni Storm, which might be one of our images of the year, is surrounded by glass and completely covered in blood as the crowd chants AEW. Toni then gets the shoe as May runs for the entrance and gets stomped onto the belt at the stage. She then is whipped with the belt, and then the crowd is chanting shoe as Toni raises the shoe, but May suckers her with a Mayday for a big near fall. Storm then headbutts, drills her with the shoe over and over, and then puts her through a table with a Storm Zero to win this, all in 12 minutes and 55 seconds as JR proclaims, "Thank God it's over," as they are left on top of one another and they zoom out where the screen reads "the end," and Storm at the end just hugs the lifeless Mariah May in this utterly spectacular match that Amazing. I thought was just the crescendo of this program for these two. I thought they had a pretty high bar to hit after Australia. They destroyed that bar for me. I think if you thought this was match of the show, you have a very strong argument for it. Like if you, in terms of just like a violent weapons-oriented match with all this backstory, like this was, I don't know, like for this style of match, I think this was about every box being checked.
And matched with a bottle.
Yes.
I was one of those people who thought this was match of the night. And on a show with Kenny Omega versus Konosuke Takeshita, in Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher in Sword versus Ricochet, I never thought. Well, I thought there was maybe a chance, but I thought a very slim chance that a women's match. Let's be honest, like with much higher caliber, like star rated types of like internet darlings would be able to outperform all of those people, and they achieved that. This was billed as a no DQ falls count anywhere match. But I think this could ultimately be remembered and classified as a death match. And I thought this was a great example of how artistic and cathartically gratifying death matches can be. They gave us a high level of risk and violence that I certainly did not expect coming out of, such a character driven, like over the top type of story. From the beginning, they went at such a crazy pace and just unloaded big spot after big spot after big spot. And it's just one of the nastiest blade jobs that I think I've ever seen in a women's match before. The duct tape glass fight leading to some amazing visuals from that overhead spot. And to me, okay, like I'm sure somebody stepping in would feel this was gratuitous, and I don't even know if I necessarily disagree. But the fact that this came at the final chapter, final meeting between two people coming off of a year-long storyline, to me justified it. This is when you pull out the stops. This is when you pull out the big blade jobs and like the shards of glass and everything else when you're trying to end such an epic story. I don't know if these two will ever have better opponents than with each other. And I feel like they recognize that. And that's why I think they poured as much as they did into it. Clearly, they took a lot of pride into the crafting this entire story. And they completely emptied the tank in making sure that this was a satisfying conclusion to it all.
I think there's also something to be said for this style of match being contained to 13 minutes, but it's like they're operating at a 10 for the whole 13 minutes that they go. And naturally, like this type of a match, it shouldn't be 30 minutes. Like this should be this is so violent, and it's just a matter of who is going to expire first. I thought this was outstanding. I just thought this was
classic.
These matches are not always going to be my favorite, but for this genre, this was incredible. I just thought it was, by the end of the show, I thought it was my match of the show as well. Like I just thought these two were fantastic. The crowd loved this. I thought JR added a lot on commentary for this as well. Just the whole thing, and this being the final chapter, it added like the significance of the end of really putting a punctuation mark on this program.
And we have to, of course, not just give credit to these two or the announcers, but the team that have put together this incredible story, including predominantly Tony Khan. I think we have to give credit to. If we're going to blame him for a lot of the top stories, we have to credit him for all the top stories, including this one, which is one of his finest works. RJ City, who we know, has contributed a lot, but like the thought that goes into, doing things like this culminating ending with this, the end, visual at the, to close off the show, I thought was just thematically perfect. And just, not to mention all the great videos that we had in the build up to all of this. Everything is just, a classic feud from AEW.
This is what they should have done with Mildred Burke and June Byers in 1954.
Maybe
should have been a Hollywood ending in Atlanta.
If you like this video, consider joining our Patreon, the Post Wrestling Cafe. Multiple bonus podcasts every week, ad-free shows, and access to our full archive. Otherwise, a like and subscribe is much appreciated. Thank you for watching.